There are 6 steps on your spiritual journey. I know most people only ever talk about 2 steps. They talk about the dark night of the soul. They talk about spiritual awakenings, but there's a lot more in your spiritual journey. And that's why today I'm going to give you the 6 steps of your spiritual journey. And once we reach the end, you're going to be able to see where you're at. What step are you on? And that's lovely because it's going to give you a little bit of a game plan. It's going to give you a sense of where this all goes. There's something exciting though. I'm going to start at number 6. I'm going to start at number 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to count down because I want you to see when I get to number 1, why I was going in reverse. There's a beautiful, very inspiring message that's going to come out of the reverse order that I'm giving this to you in. Okay, so let's start at number 6. And I got to tell you, first of all, you're going to hear me talk about these 6 steps and you're going to go, wait, I think I've done this one. Maybe you skipped one. It's unlikely. Most of these happen in order, but it's very likely that you can go back from time to time. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with going back to master a step. So sometimes we complete it. We get a little bit kind of overly excited to move on. We move on and then we go, damn, wait, I didn't get the fullness of that step. I want to go back and get something else. So if you figure that you're going backwards and forwards on certain steps, perfectly fine to do that. Let's start with number 6. It's the victim. Now, if you were to ask me, where's humanity at in their steps? I would say the majority is at number 6, but you tell me what you think. I would get a sense that this is a very familiar place for the majority. However, I don't think the majority is like 90% of humanity. I think the majority is more like a little bit over 50%. That's my estimation. So tell me what you think. This is the victim. Oh. This is just huge. The victim mode, it's all about what everybody else has done to me. We were born to the false matrix. So to understand why people gravitate here to number 6, understand that. You were born to a world that was inverted, a reality that was inverted, a reality that told you not to be powerful, to be powerless, and even rewarded powerlessness and said, yes, you're indemnified from being wrong. You are the victim. So society kind of encouraged this behavior. And at the individual level, those who shouted the loudest and blamed the most fervently, they were projecting the hardest, projecting the not good enoughness that they felt, projecting the inner loathing perhaps that they felt, the inner discombobulation that comes with being a part of the false matrix. It's so hard to acknowledge it. It's so hard to see it clearly. It's much easier at that level, number 6, to project it out and make it all about other people and their wrongdoings. And this is where you say things like, oh, damn, if only other people could behave themselves, if only other people could be nicer. This is where other people, aka the external world, has the power, but not the individual. The individual has blame as their weapon and they wield that weapon through life. And it's kind of a weapon that they hold up in self-defense. It's a weapon that they hold up in self-preservation, trying to protect themselves because they permanently feel like they're being attacked. And from the vantage point of the false matrix, this is where the false matrix wants you. So at point number 6, you're going to feel very threatened. You're going to feel very fight, flight, response-ish. You're going to feel very much in survival mode. Number 5. Number 5 is a point that a lot of people will talk about. They call this the dark night of the soul. I'm going to call it the crash. Point number 5 is where you're busy humming along in life and then suddenly something crashes. Something gives way in your reality. The crash is your personal world gets taken down. Can you see how that's important? Because at point number 6, it's all about the external world. There is no inner world. You don't matter. The external world matters. You don't have power. The external world's got your power. At point number 5, it's where the world crashes down around you. Your world. It's a very personal thing. It can be like a big cold wake up. as in the universal slap in the face that says, hey, you've been daydreaming, look at what's really going on. That can be the crash. The crash can also be your hopes, your dreams, your fantasies, the world that you were creating come crashing down around you. And it's debris and it's mayhem and it's loss and it's grief and it's a very, very difficult place. This is where your soul has intervened. And I know when I say that, people will think, oh, she means like angels will come. She means like light will come from the sky. No, this is where the crash happens, because your soul's intervention is you can't carry on. You can't carry on in the unconsciousness of point number 6. And you can see how at this step number 5, it's easy to go back to number 6. It's very easy to go, oh, now look at the victim that I am. And it takes tremendous courage to burst through, to break through. I call this place the squeeze. The squeeze. So first there's the crash. And this is still part of the same point, still point number 5. Remember, oh, by the way, I didn't say this. Every step has got multiple steps to it. So I'm giving you the crash as the 5th step. But underneath this, there are numerous steps. I just want to give you a really zoomed out perspective. So there's a sub-step here in the crash, and it's called the squeeze. This is where constriction happens. You feel so limited, so constricted. You feel like you are being suffocated. Choices are being taken away from you. And what that's doing is it's pushing you into the next step. And it's almost giving you nowhere to go, right? Imagine all that pressure, all that pressure, all that pressure. It's forcing you to move in the direction of your own healing. And isn't it insane that that's what it takes? We won't go there willingly. We won't change willingly because it requires introspection. And the human being who was born to the false matrix is just so afraid of being wrong. So deathly afraid of their own wrongness. By the time, however, though, that you get to point number 5 or step number 5, you just couldn't care less if you're wrong anymore. Suddenly that's not very important. You're in such a desolate space. The crash has happened. Your reality has broken in some way. The squeeze brings you into a directional focus, and it spits you out at step number 4. And step number 4 is inward focus. See how now we're moving. At number 6, it's external. It's all about what I see out there. It's what they're doing to me. Now, inward focus happens. And this is a turning point, because now you matter. And I like the play on that word matter, because what is matter? Matter is when something is real, right? This is, if I were holding an object in my hand, this is matter. It matters. To most people, they don't matter to themselves, which means they're not real to themselves. Now that you've gotten to point number 4, you start to matter to yourself. So now you become real, because now it's inward focus. You can now start to see yourself. Blaming others has lost its flavor. The reality that you had is crumbling. So now what do you have? A connection to yourself that wasn't there before. You're now drawing on an emotional depth that was always there, but you couldn't access before. Now all the things that you blocked off, the empathy that you blocked off, now it starts coming back. The emotions that you blocked off, they start coming back as well. So this point of inward focus, this is what a lot of people call spiritual awakening. But it's only step number 4. It's not even the halfway mark. Do you see how everybody spoke about this thing, this big, the lights would come on, the spiritual awakening? All that is the shift in reality from the external to the internal. And when that happens, it feels like your world is turned upside down, but that's only because we were born to an inverted matrix, which was upside down. So actually you're coming the right way round now. But when you come the right way round, everything feels like it's discombobulated. Reality feels like it goes very wavy and wobbly, and it's not solid anymore. Again, you're starting to tune deeper into yourself. This becomes the only place that you can actually find stability. Now, things that really once mattered don't matter so much anymore. Like in point number 6, when you were there, what mattered was, what are they doing? What do they think? What are they going to do? What are they saying? At point number 4, when you get here, self-care matters. What do I feel about this? That begins to matter. What do I sense about this? That begins to matter. And you're still going to draw on the very old familiar coping mechanisms and tools that you've used. You're still going to now seek spiritual teachers to tell you, what must I think? What must I feel? What do you think? What should I feel? So there's still that tendency, but the focus has shifted. The focus has now become more internalized. The awakening has happened. Reality is now starting to balance itself out. It's now starting to come the right way round. It's a massive shift, but it leads to point number 3. Point number 3 is personal responsibility, and it's perhaps one of the loneliest points on the path. This is the point that the spiritual awakening happens, and it's all very pretty. You know, when the spiritual awakening happens, it's like, yeah, that's what I was missing. Here's the insight. Here's the info. I can enter into the sublime bliss of a guided meditation. Yeah, there's some very beautiful things that you now have access to because you literally have access to another world. But the tendency is going to be there for you to move from number 4, the spiritual awakening or the inward focus, to number 5, so that you can get back to number 6. Because at number 6, you don't have to be responsible. You don't have to be accountable. But as the universe works, it always gives you that squeeze, right? The constriction, the pressure to move you in the right direction, to make sure that you don't go from point number 4 back towards number 6, but now to keep you moving from 4 to 3, which is the taking of personal responsibility. You begin to see, wow, the thing that was missing from my life was my power. In the old world, I was the victim and everybody else was pulling my strings. And now this is what leads you to number 3. I want to be powerful. I want to lead my own life. You start using words like sovereignty and choices, making decisions. These are all aspects of power. So the desire now is, I want to take charge maybe of my welfare or my health, and I want to be responsible for feeling good about myself. So responsibility starts becoming very attractive because you start seeing it for what it is. It's a doorway to your own liberation. It's a doorway to power. And the false matrix was set up to tell humanity, look, don't be powerful. Please, don't be anything, but don't be powerful, because powerful people hurt people. Powerful people abuse people. Powerful people are bad people. You don't want to be a powerful people. You're going to have the weight of the world on your shoulders. Let somebody else take over. Let somebody else do it for you. The false matrix sells you a lie. And we all bought into that lie, and that's absolutely fine. The false matrix came crashing down at number 5. We went through our spiritual awakening at number 4. Now at number 3, we're delving into an unknown territory called personal responsibility and figuring out, oh my God, it's not what the world told me. Personal responsibility is not blame. Wow. So when I'm personally responsible for how I feel, for example, that doesn't mean I'm responsible for what somebody else did to me. I'm responsible for how I interpreted, how I reacted, how I cope, how I deal. I'm responsible for this world of mine. Now I'm powerful in this world of mine, and I begin to take even more form. I matter even more, so I'm becoming almost more solid, as opposed to the invisibility of before. There's a reason why so many people say, I feel invisible, I feel unseen. It's because we were taught not to see ourselves, instead to see everyone and everything around us. Personal responsibility it's the ultimate turning point. In fact, this is a turning point at number 3, where once you've come here, you really can't go back. You really can't. It's so difficult to experience the power that comes with personal responsibility and to realize what I was taught was wrong. Power is peace. Power is protection. When I'm powerful, I can protect my loved ones and myself, for example. When I'm powerful, I can do good in the world. When I'm powerful, I can effect change in the world. Wow. We then move from personal responsibility into my favorite place of all the steps. You might have thought number 1 was going to be my favorite. Actually, it's this one. It's number 2. It's called the energetic explorer. Now think about it. This is 2 steps away from what we commonly call the spiritual awakening, from step number 4, which I've also called the inward focus. 2 steps away. So in other words, look at the progression, where the spiritual awakening takes you. When you come to number 3 and you're in that personal responsibility, it is awfully tempting to go back. But man, once you break through into step number 2, oh, baby. The energetic explorer. Let me tell you why this is my favorite. Because this is where you experience the world as it is, as energy. The false matrix taught us to interpret the world as thoughts. That's why there's a narrator in our mind, incessantly talking. I saw such a funny TikTok the other day. I don't know who the creator was, but it was really hilarious. This woman goes, so when you guys do nothing, like she's asking the camera, asking the audience, when you guys do nothing, like, is there silence in your mind? She says, because this is a new novel thought to me. She says, I've just figured out that there are people who actually, when they do nothing, they have radio silence in the mind. She says, I don't know what that's like. I've never had that. This doesn't stop. The chatter is incessant. So I can be still and I can be sitting in a lotus pose, but it's ongoing. And she's just amazed that there are people in this world who are what I would call energetic explorers. An energetic explorer isn't, I was going to say they aren't jabbering, but actually that's not entirely true. The energetic explorer is not tuning into the frequency of the chatterbox mind. So it's not exactly true to say, I'm not chatting when I'm in the energetic explorer. I'm just not tuning into my mind. My mind is kind of like a radio station, or I should rather say my brain. My brain is kind of like a radio station that's still playing. Sorry, you guys, I just had an important phone call I had to take. So let me see if I can pick up my train of thought. I was talking about energetic explorer. Yes. So this is where you drop, it's almost a relief. This is where you drop that incessant overthinking of the chatterbox brain. You start tuning into the world of energy. So using the analogy of the chatterbox brain as a radio station, the energetic world as a radio station, and you are the receiver of signals, realizing, wow, that signal that I was receiving from the brain made me believe that I was my thoughts, made me believe that I was the brain. Now you're beginning at this step, at number 5, you're beginning to tune in to who you are as a being of consciousness, a being of energy. You begin to experience the world as a very non-solid place. Your eyes can see the physical world around you, but your experience of a tree that you walk past, of the mountain that you're standing on, your experience of the world is an ocean of consciousness. A conversation with another human being. 2 oceans are meeting, 2 currents are interacting with each other. There's flow, there's rhythm, there's an experience that is very unique, harmonious though. It's very, very potent and very enthralling. I have the ability, and I always have had the ability, to see energy. And I've often described this as seeing a kaleidoscope of color. I know that people talk about seeing the auric field, but when you get your energetic eyes switched on, you see much more than an auric field. You see waves of consciousness before it becomes form. Your experience now is very easy to upgrade into a 5D experience because you're not in the solidity of 3D anymore. You're still very much in the body, but you're experiencing energy into the physical form. Embodiment now becomes so much easier. Every life just becomes easier. Everything zings and sings at this level. And of course, it leads you somewhere. It leads you to point number 1. Remember what I said in the beginning. Stay tuned to understand why I'm working backwards, because there's a very important message for you here. Number 1 is the ripple, the lighthouse, the example. This is when you are so potentized by being in step number 2, where you are just energy, and you're experiencing this wonderful zooming, looming, energetic field around you. Now you start to exude. You start to ripple out. You start to experience levels and layers of love that you've never experienced before, and you cannot contain those, and they spill and they ripple, and the ripple is the most potent thing you can be on this planet. And that is how we change the world. We do not change the world at this level of vocality. In other words, the chitty, chattery, the debating, the analyzing. That's not going to change the world. It's the silent ones sitting at home, being the ripple, or sitting behind a school teacher's desk, or sitting behind a banker's desk, sitting wherever they are in the world. There's the misconception that says, oh, when you get really spiritual, you got to be you got to work in the spiritual field. No, it's ridiculous, because that's where all the spiritual people are. The true light workers need to be in the world so that their ripple can reach humanity. And I've shared this before about darkness and density, but in case you missed it, darkness and density has no ripple. It has the tiniest bandwidth of energy that just peters out. There's nothing, because darkness has no energetic life force unless light unconsciously gives it its life force. That's why there's so many people needed at point number 6, because they're feeding darkness. At point number 1, you're busy being refueled, and now you're contributing to society as the ripple. These are the masters of change upon planet Earth. This is where you stop demanding change and you start being the change. So let's talk about why I gave this to you in reverse. Why was that order that I gave it to you so important? Because you all start out at number 1. The way that a baby comes into the world, the baby does nothing, says nothing, but is the ripple. You started out at number 1. You started out at number 1, and then you worked backwards. You went from being the ripple to speaking in energy. You didn't speak whatever your mother tongue is, if it's English or German or whatever it is. You didn't start out speaking that language. You spoke very fluently the language of energy. So you were an energetic explorer. First you were the ripple, then you were the energetic explorer. That's 1, that's 2. Then we get to number 3. Personal responsibility is where things started going wrong. This step is where we learned about being wrong, and we learned about shame. And so now we moved further away from our truth, because we learned that instead of taking personal responsibility and that making us powerful, we learned to accept and absorb our parents' perception of wrongness as shame and ridicule. And so we started moving backwards. Then we moved into inward focus, which is where our spiritual awakening got given away. Instead of having a spiritual awakening, when we move 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we are as children coming 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're moving away from the ripple that we originated as. We're giving away our spiritual awakening. We're moving into the crashing of our world, and eventually landing up blaming everybody else, totally depotentized from the ripple that we once started out as. So life really is the journey back home. It's the journey back to where we started out as the ripple. The baby just has to be. The baby does nothing. The baby is just alive. And somebody is going to look at that baby. My brother once saw me in a grocery store. This was many, many years ago. I didn't know that he was there. He didn't expect to see me there. We sort of literally bumped into each other. And he said to me, I knew it was you. He said, because I just saw this person walking past with this infant. And he said, I saw your face. You got such a mom face. You just lit up. And I did, because I just do when I'm in the presence of a child or an infant, or in this case, a newborn baby. I stop and I'm just, oh, beautiful. Maybe you're like that with dogs. Maybe you're like that with animals. Maybe you're like that with nature. I'm like that with all things that remind me of home. So yeah, in my case, it can absolutely be dogs. It can absolutely be children. It's that beautiful, expansive, loving wave of warm energy that washes over you. That's what it is to be in the presence of a ripple. Let me know in the comments below where you've stumbled the longest, where you have fumbled and fallen the most. So I look forward to hearing from you in the comment section below. Lots of love from my heart all the way to yours. This video I released a little while back, and it explained a lot about ascension and the process of ascension. I'm going to pin it up here for you, and I'll put it in the video description box below. From my heart all the way to yours. Lots of love, everyone.